Call the meeting to order. The first file we'll hear is Senate File 61, motor vehicle sales to family members non-taxable.
Mr. Chairman, committee, I bring to you the motor vehicle sales to family members non-taxable. In today's society, when family members are transferring a vehicle amongst themselves. I'm sorry. Oh, Stacy Jones, Senate District 13. Typically today, when family members are transferring a vehicle amongst themselves and there's no loan on the vehicle, they usually fill out a bill of sale for $0 and there's no extra sales tax needed to be paid. The problem comes in if there's an actual loan on the vehicle. If that happens and they're transferring amongst immediate family members, there is sales tax collected again on the loan amount of the vehicle. So basically, seems like double taxation for family members. This bill does say immediate family members are parent, child, spouse, or sibling. And so basically, it just lets us keep a little bit of more money in our pockets. And it says that even if there is a loan, that they don't have to pay sales tax again.
Questions? Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
We have any testimony from the audience?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Sharon. It shows green. Can you hear it? Can you hear me better?
Much better.
Sorry about that. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Sharon Ream. I'm the administrator for the Excise Tax Division. I have a couple things with this bill I would like to go over if that's possible. First, I'd like to say that we work very closely with the county treasurers in collecting the sales tax for vehicles. We will continue to do so. The Department of Revenue is the final administrative authority with how the tax is collected, and we work with them very closely. We have a good working relationship with them, and we plan to have that in the future with this bill as well. I would like to direct you, first of all, to page 2. I apologize, I have a little bit of a cold, so page 2, line 9 and 10. It says, as used in this paragraph, immediate family members means family member means parent, child, spouse, or sibling. We are fine with what immediate means. However, we want clarification on how we and the county determine who that person is. For instance, we gave my daughter a car. She no longer has our name, our last name. She has a different last name. Now, how is the county going to determine, or we're going to determine how that relationship is met and how those qualifications are met? So that's just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about this bill. On lines 12 through 15, so the seller or donor of the motor vehicle shall have paid sales tax or use tax as requested, as required by law with the seller or the donor purchased, purchased or required the vehicle. This means that, as stated before in previous testimony, that if a father provides, gives a gift to the son, that there would be no tax due. That's currently how it is. So this isn't any change for us. That would still be the current status. It also, if we talk about the actual consideration, we do consider a loan consideration. That means that there was something exchanged currently that is taxed, so that would be exempting it. And I just want to make sure that that's your intent in the bill, is to make sure that those are exempt, those types of sales. So whether it's sold for $1 or $10,000, or if there's a loan on it, that's considered consideration. And at this time, we do tax that. So going forward in this bill, that would mean that would be exempt. I just want to make sure we clarify that. The other thing that came to mind, and also that we want some clarification on, is because this bill talks about the taxability of whether we're going to exempt this or not, Montana currently has no sales tax. So when a dad gives over a vehicle to his son or daughter or any family member, they do not pay sales tax in Montana. So when they bring it into Wyoming, currently we tax that because there was no sales tax paid. So currently in this bill, that wouldn't exempt that because no tax was paid prior to this transaction. So I just want to clarify that as well in this bill, if that was your intent, or if, how that's going to go forward. The other thing is that I wanted to bring up is that we don't have any issues with the deadline of the July of 2026 deadline. We are perfectly fine with that, and we will work with the counties as necessary. And for that, I stand for any questions.
Senator Case.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to understand how the loan part works. And so, say you have a mother-daughter situation. It's the mother's car and there's $1,000 loan on it, just to keep it easy. So several things could happen. I realize probably the lender is going to want the security to follow the person that has the car now. But if the mother keeps making the payments on the loan, it's sort of a gift, same as if there was no consideration. But if the child makes the payments on the loans, then it's kind of like they bought the car for $1,000. So trying to understand the differences between that. One case, if the original owners keeps making the loan payments, that's the same as if they paid off the loan and gave them the car. It's just done over time. It seems pretty gifty to me, whereas the other one seems more like a sale. So, but that's not the way we interpret it. And I realize that's an overcomplication and we don't get that much information, but I think that might be part of the impetus behind just forgetting about that, but help me.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Yes, Senator. What would happen in this case, if you're talking about this bill, that would then be exempt because it's for consideration. So going forward, that would be exempt.
So, Mr. Chairman, it wouldn't come into play. Is that a good reason to support this bill because of the loan? Or, I mean, I'm trying to get my arms around it. Does this happen a lot? I bet it does.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir, it does. We can't, Mr. Chairman, we can't determine exactly how often family members give to other family members or how often this happens. We know it does. We are aware that it does, but I can't give you a number as to how often, but it does happen and it's happening currently.
So thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I apologize for stupid questions.
Follow up.
I've never had a car that was new enough to have a loan.
Senator Dockstetter.
Question, please, if I could, and if I have privilege for just a moment. I noticed my colleague's car had over 300,000 miles on it.
400,000.
400,000 last time I spoke with him. So he gets his use out. Mr. Chairman, ma'am, you said if they don't have the same name, I'm reading page 2. I'm reading it and seeing that just says immediate family member. Your concerns again on whether or not they have the same family name?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Sir, what I'm saying is that us in the county are going to have, we just want to determine how we're going to know if someone walks in and says, my dad gave me, gifted me this vehicle, how we are going to verify that that is in fact their child or, their sibling or however we define immediate family. There has to be something to verify that they are who they say they are.
Mr. Chairman, quick follow-up.
Go ahead.
What would you see as a change, or would you want the sponsor to come up with a change on that?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, please.
Senator, the only thing I could say is it would either have to be with an affidavit or some kind of proof. Normally we leave that at the county level as far as the types of, we collaborate with the county for that. We can come up with a couple different ways to do that, an affidavit, a sworn document. There's a couple different things that we could do to help out with that. We're not opposed to working with the county to come up with something, but I think we do have to have something in place in order to, because we are asked for refunds at times. We want to make sure that we're giving money back to where it's supposed to go, and also that we can verify who they say they are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We might want to double check with the sponsor when the time comes.
Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We have two online.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will promote Lindsay West.
Welcome to Revenue.
Good afternoon, Chairman McCowan and committee. My name is Lindsay West, and I'm the Carbon County Treasurer, and I'm also president of the Wyoming County Treasurers Association. The Wyoming County Treasurers Association is here in support of Senate File 61 today. When we discuss taxable motor vehicle transactions between family members, they are few and far between. Kind of in the context of overall motor vehicle purchases. Most often, we are presented with documentation indicating the vehicle was a gift. Less often, we see nominal sales prices, and even less frequently, we encounter the specific situation this bill is intended to address. While I don't have an exact percentage on how many transactions this bill would impact compared to total motor vehicle sales, I want to emphasize that the number is negligible. We don't really anticipate any noticeable reduction in overall sales tax revenue because of this change for motor vehicle sales tax. As Senator Jones indicated, the situation this bill addresses typically is occurring when an immediate family member initially purchases a vehicle with the loan and the title held solely in their name. Later ownership is transferred and the debt is assumed solely by another immediate family member. And because there's no shared ownership, and in accordance with the Department of Revenue rules, our offices have treated that assumption of debt as consideration, which in turn is taxable in Title 39 because of its use in existing definitions and because it's not exclusively exempt. In these cases, families are often surprised and frustrated to learn that the tax is owed because they don't view this transaction as a traditional sale. So by clearly prescribing that motor vehicle sales or transfers between immediate family members are non-taxable, Senate File 61 brings greater clarity and aligns taxation with existing vehicle registration statute, which already allows continuation of registration upon transfers between immediate family members without the requirement of new registration fees. The association supports this measure for that clarity and consistency. And we're happy to work with the Department of Revenue on additions to rules or determining appropriate documentations for taxability purposes. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would stand for any questions.
Questions? Senator Hyde.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this kind of goes back to the loan aspect of this that Senator Case brought up and you referenced as well. And I just want to make sure I understand. So in a situation where you transferred it to an immediate family member, transferred the title, and then they assumed the loan, would you still be taxing the loan aspect of that transfer under this legislation? Thank you.
So it isn't our understanding that that's what we understand this Senate File 61 to basically take away that, because that's where we're seeing the frustrations occurring is when that loan is assumed. So now instead of the parent having the loan under their name, the child has the loan under their name. And it's that consideration, that assumption of debt that we, as the treasurers, understand this to really address.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we now have Mark Cowan.
Brett raised his hand back here, but there's someone else.
Welcome.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Sorry for speaking over you.
No worries.
I'm Mark Cowan, Sweetwater County Treasurer, and I asked for Senator Jones to bring this bill forward. And I think that y'all are catching on to exactly what the reason was for this bill. In a couple of instances in my offices that really triggered this bill, where I had a parent that came in and tried to transfer a vehicle to their child and then get a loan on that vehicle so that the child could start building credit. And then we were required to charge sales tax on that loan, even though the vehicle had already been paid for and the sales tax had been paid for by the parent. And so parents get very frustrated. They're like, look, I'm just trying to help my child out here. And we've already paid the tax on this vehicle. Isn't there a way for us to transfer this to them without paying the sales tax? And there hasn't been up until this bill that's being promoted. So it is correct that if this bill were to pass, that a transfer to your spouse, if you bought a vehicle and you paid for that vehicle and you still had a loan on that vehicle and you decided it was in your name and you decided to transfer that to your spouse and your spouse decided to take up that loan, then you would pay sales tax on that vehicle again for the loan amount. And this bill would eliminate that so that essentially double taxation doesn't occur anymore. I think everybody else has done a wonderful job of describing the bill, but I would stand for any questions if you have any.
Questions? Well, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
We're going to find out.
Mr. Chairman, Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, sitting in support of this bill. But I do have a question under the definition as immediately family member means a parent, child, spouse, or sibling. In other instances, it's been important to add in, stepchildren, step parents. I don't know, like for an example with landowner licenses, that's been ruled, if I have it correctly, that you can only give that to your children. You can't even give it to your stepchildren. I don't know if that's important. I don't know if it's understood that stepchildren, step parents would be included in this as a question, but in supporting the bill. That's why I bring that question forward, because I don't know the answer. I would take any questions you or the committee may have.
Could we get the Department of Revenue up here again?
Well, and Mr. Chairman, if you think about it, if the title is in both parents, so one of them is the blood parent, so that most of the time wouldn't be an issue. It'd be like if the title is in the step person's parent's name and they want to give it to their step.
And Mr. Chairman, maybe I'm seeing black helicopters, but if this question needs to be answered, I would say now would probably be the time to do it.
It does cover tractors also.
And meat grinders.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Anything else for me?
Hang tight for just a minute. Can you help us out with that? Because to me, a stepchild is still a child, but is that gonna hang everything up or not?
Sir, I think it's Mr. Chairman, I think it's better to clarify it if you can. But it's
Okay.
strictly up to you and you're in the committee.
We'll make that amendment.
That was a non-answer.
I
Thank you.
No, that's the
apologize.
right answer.
Go ahead, Senator Ide.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have any policy, Department of Revenue, where this has been addressed before, which Mr. Moline brought up as far as how do you describe immediate family member? I see Director shaking his head back there, so I guess I got my answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you for coming back up.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, if it's a non-issue, I'm sorry I brought it up, but if it could be an issue, I'm glad I brought it up, if that makes any sense. With that, I would take any other questions you or the committee may have for me.
Questions? Well, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Moline.
I thought AARP was making the trip up, but
I
then
did
walked
too.
out the door.
We have anybody else? Well, we'll close public testimony.
Move the bill.
Second.
Been moved by Senator Case, seconded by Senator Ide. Discussion.
Can we add stepchildren? Or how would we do that?
Senator Pappas.
Yeah, I'd like to add an amendment on line 13, page 3. After parent, after the comma, after parent includes step parent, comma. Then it'll say child, and then after child, we'll put children.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Step parent or parents? Should it be plural or
I think it would be singular.
singular? Step
Yeah.
parent, so then it should be child and stepchild.
So it would read, family member means a parent and step parent,
Step parent.
child and stepchild, spouse or sibling, or step sibling.
I wasn't gonna put the commas in between them. Just parent, step,
Right. Would you include, Mr. Chairman, should we include step sibling?
yes. It's friendly amendment.
Works for me.
I don't think we need spouse, right?
Oh, it's been a day.
It's like this every day.
Could be
Great.
the third spouse. I don't know.
Do we have a second on the motion?
For me, sir.
All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That amendment has passed.
Mr. Chairman, there are concerns, as we heard from the clerk, we need verification, so affidavit for verification, trying to decide where that would best fit. And I don't know if you want to go back to the sponsor to see the sponsor's feeling for that.
Mr. Chairman. Can I?
Go ahead, Senator Pappas.
I agree with Senator Dockstader. Could we just ask the sponsor to bring it at a first reading amendment, at the committee of the whole amendment?
Mr. Chairman, what might be easier at the committee level?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask if the department could do this in rules?
That was my question.
Where's she at?
Department of Revenue.
Could you do it in rules? Not sure? They're not sure, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps we should add it with the council from our clerk.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, Sharon Ream with the Excise Tax Division. We wanted to also make sure that it is in the use tax side of this. If you'll look on the next page, page 3, it's use tax. So we just want to make sure that that's carried through both sales tax and use tax.
I'd make that motion.
Could we have it repeated?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Could you state your point again, please?
Yes, could we have that both on the, I know you guys are talking about the sales tax side, but could we also have that on the use tax side? The 15 through line 18, and then the 12 through 13, we want to make sure that that follows through on the use tax side. All the changes that are made on the sales tax side to be followed through on the use tax side.
Does lines 15 through 18 cover that already? On page 3? Seller or donor of the motor vehicle shall have paid sales tax or use tax
Correct.
as required by law when the seller or donor purchased or received the vehicle.
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman.
Senator Case,
Mr. Chairman.
you're red.
On page 3, that covers whether the people that owned it had paid sales or use tax. On page 2 is where the exemption comes in, and on line 2, page 2, the following sales or leases are exempt from the excise tax imposed by this article. And what my question to you or Mr. Fanning is, does that excise tax mean sales and use tax? Both. Assume it does.
Yes.
So we don't need to add anything then, because that covers it, I think. Oh, look out,
Yes, that-
Fanning's coming up. I got you in trouble.
Oh, that's okay. Mr. Chairman,
Please.
can you please add stepchildren to the use tax on page 3?
Do we have an amendment for that?
Are you thinking of the bottom of the page, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I think we're looking at adding it to page 2, line 9. and
Page
10.
2. Oh, I thought they said page 3.
Well, we added it to page 3.
That's right.
By the last amendment, but page 2, line 9 and 10
Yes.
also would be amended
Identical.
identically.
Yeah.
So I'll move that amendment.
Second.
Moved by Senator Pappas, seconded by Senator Case. Discussion?
Same issue.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That amendment passes.
Mr. Chairman, where are we going with the affidavit?
That's what I was just gonna ask.
Senator Jones.
Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to add the affidavit language?
Oh, yeah. Can I do that amendment and add it on the floor?
You want to?
Do you?
Might be easier to do it here now.
Yeah, but you gotta get the language.
I am not positive where it would be most appropriate. I guess we could just add it at the,
We can do it on the floor.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ide.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The appropriate language, I think it should be referenced as a specific kind of an affidavit, like in this case, they're probably not deceased, but an affidavit of heirship of some sort, you know what I mean, that they're connected, but yeah. So yeah, it might be better to wait to get the appropriate language. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Well, we'll close public comment once again, and what do you want to do, guys?
Move the bill. There's the motions.
I'll second it, but we probably took those amendments out of order, didn't we? We hadn't moved the bill. Okay.
We're gonna get to the same place.
Okay.
Unless you want to call a point of order. And then, Mr. Chairman, what I point out is this will might be one of the last bills where we have to do use tax or sales tax on page 1 and 2 and use tax on page 3 and 4.
That's correct.
Which has almost caused us to make a mistake. See?
I think we did move the bill.
Oh, I did move the bill.
I thought we did.
We did.
Yeah, I thought we did.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Rosas, Senator Pappas.
Right.
Okay, any more discussion?
Question on the bill.
Let's do roll call.
Mr. Chairman, this is a roll call vote for Senate File 61 as amended. Senator Case,
Aye.
Senator Dockstader,
Aye.
Senator Ide,
Aye.
Senator Pappas,
Aye.
Chairman McEwen.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 ayes.
Well, Senate File 61 has passed the committee. Next bill we'll hear is Senate File 110, residential property tax revisions. Oh, good numbers.
Oh, yeah. Clean that one.
It's got writing on it now.
Not your pictures. Your.
Looks like it.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here today. I didn't think I was sitting here in the audience and I was trying to recall if I've ever been in front of the Revenue Committee in the past. And in my entire career, I don't ever remember because it's not my expertise. But it's an area that I think, as you guys well understood, is very important to the people of the state of Wyoming. I mean, we went for the double-digit property tax inflation, the COVID hangover. I know you guys have done a lot of hard work on this stuff and clearly have a lot of expertise on this. But having gone through the interim and listened through the last couple of years, and then I'm trying to understand the impact, but also the nature of property taxes and stuff, it led me to asking LSO staff for the last several months to start crunching some numbers. Let's look at other alternatives. Have we evaluated everything that we could have evaluated out there? And so, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, that's the genesis of Senate File 110, is to take the work that we've already done, but rather than mirror that, I will equate this as what we're doing now is we're looking at a fund swap. So it doesn't really change what we've done as far as the amount of property tax relief. It just structures how we're doing property tax relief in a different fashion. And so, you know, with the effort that the legislature did in the past, we just set a percentage of all residential property taxes, and having evaluated that and listening to a lot of the concerns out there associated with that, particularly the impacts on those local governments, led me to ask some questions of LSO, and they've been crunching numbers for months trying to get to the point where I think we have what I would say is a sweet spot that maybe we can do this. And so, Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to do, and for me, pictures always bring home what we're doing much better than reading page after page of statutes. And so I just took this, every county does this. You can go in there and click on anybody's property taxes and it'll tell you what it is. And it's going to be a little different. I actually had LSO break it out on a county basis. Every county's a little different. They range from 57 mills up to 76 mills. And those can be different areas within a county based on all those other special districts out there, above and beyond what the county assesses and then what the state assesses. But roughly what you see is about 70% of the property tax mills that are assessed, these are averages, this is kind of a statewide averages, is money that comes back to the state in some form or fashion. The other 30% of those residential property taxes that are accumulated, those go to those local governments. And so those go into the counties, they're going to go back to those special districts out there.
So what the bill effectively does, Mr. Chairman, it's a fund swap. So what I ask LSO do is to try to find what we could do with our portion, that 70% of that portion that we collect, and give that full property tax relief burden back on the state. But that being said, Mr. Chairman, we also had in November of 2024, the voters voted for a constitutional amendment to give the legislature the authority to create another fourth class of property. And based on what we did last year, that fourth class of property was occupied residential property. This brings that concept right in here. And then, but what we've done, rather than taking a 25% cut, we've actually implemented that constitutional provision allows us, now that we've designated the fourth class, to say we're going to take that class from 9.5% down to 8.3%. And that implements that constitutional provision. The differential, that gives us on average about a 13% reduction in property taxes. And that's implementing the will of the people through the constitutional amendment. From what we've already done, that still left us a void of 12%. And so that's where I had LSO start saying, where can we take that 12% out of the taxes that the state collects and not impact those local governments? And so consequently, it led me to where we have the biggest flexibility is we assess on a statewide basis about 20, what we do, we assess 25 mills for the school program. If you look on the handout, all total, there's 33 mills assessed for school and education. 18 of those are in the Constitution, so we can't do anything with those without amending the Constitution, but there's 25 of those that are statutory. So what I'd ask staff to do is say, how do we get to that full 25% that we've already granted by adjusting those mills? And when it comes up to, it's zero. We collect 0 mills, but that's money that we're responsible for. The effect of that is it leaves that, to get to that 25%, it leaves that other 12% of those mills that we're now collecting on those local governments, that goes back to them. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important to look at the numbers. And so what I would like to do is turn that over to Matt Sackett with LSO, and he can walk you through where those, the numbers to get to that 25 or maybe a little bit shaded, a little more higher property tax relief. And then how much of that then that we're not going to collect from those local governments out of that 25%, because we're only going to take it out of our mills, the mills that the state collects, what that does effectively. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would turn it over to Matt Sackett.
Chairman McEwen, members of the Senate Revenue Committee, Matt Sackett with LSO. I think looking at this big picture is, so this bill eliminates the 25% exemption. So the across the board 25% exemption is eliminated in this legislation. And if you look at the Department of Revenue's annual report, their homeowners exemption, if you look at the tax value of that, average of 69 mills across the state, that's about 101-ish million dollars would be restored by that 25% exemption. And if you look big picture on the chart here, you see at the bottom highlighted kind of in yellow or the very bottom, the result of this bill overall would be about $101 million. As Senator Hicks basically explained, the shifts, this would all then go to generally to education. So you see there's about $131 million reduction on that estimated 25 mil school levy. But because we are assessing, in addition, that 25% is now back on, you're seeing increased revenues for some of those other mills. So the estimated SFP 12 mills, the school mills of 6, the county mills of 12, and then, as Senator Hicks said, the all other mills, which include BOCES and special districts and some of those would all see a revenue increase because of that restoration of the 25% that is currently exempted. And another, I think, important point is this bill really kind of bifurcates the homeowners. Homeowners owner occupied versus non-owner occupied. So in this legislation, only owner occupied properties receive the 0 mills, and they receive the reduced assessment rate from 9.5 to 8.3. So owner occupied houses benefit with paying 0 mills for those 25, as well as a reduction in their assessment rate from 9.5 to 8.3. Non-owner occupied housing would pay the same 9.5% assessment rate, and they would not receive, they would still pay the full 25 mills. So that's kind of an important, I think, bifurcation between owner occupied housing and non-owner occupied housing in this legislation. But big picture, the 100 million, or so is restored through the 25%, elimination of that 25% reduction. And then it comes out basically with those 0 mills and reduced assessment rate for the owner occupied. So pretty close to the same number, 100 million-ish, but these are all now education funds that are basically seeing the reduction. I don't know if there's any questions or if I skipped over something, but.
Senator Wright.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, real quick. Good description, by the way, from both of you here to help understand what's going on. What happens, and I always hate to go back to this, but what happens on the People's Initiative that's going to be on the ballot this fall? How does that potentially affect this? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you tell me. I have no idea. It's the identical level of property tax. I mean, within, I think, Matt, I mean, we're down to less than a single % different than what they're currently getting right now. The other part of that is, I think, is we have an obligation to educate the taxpayers. And so right now, the mechanisms to give that additional 25% already are in statutes. And so I think the message that we want to send out here is we've done everything we can. We've implemented the constitutional amendment with the intention of that occupied homeowner. That's the target audience that we wanted to get to. We further reduced your property taxes to get to the 25% by reducing those school mills that the state collects. That's much more expedient, streamlined, and simpler than trying to do backfills. We're just not going to collect it. The third part of that leg, and what I think is the beauty of the discussion that we need to have with the taxpayers, the mechanism already exists for them to get additional property tax relief. And we've seen a number of counties do this. So within statutes, it says the counties may assess up to 12 mills. And we know there's counties out there right now that are assessing between 5 and 11. That's, if you go back to this chart, the pie chart, that's this stuff down here where it says counties, right? You can go to your commissioners and say, look, we want property tax relief. The state's done their share. We've implemented the constitutional amendment. You don't need to go do anything at the ballot box. They can do that right now. Same with every one of those special districts. They're locally elected. Your county commissioners are elected. Many of those special district supervisors are elected. There's roughly 700 plus or minus special districts in the state of Wyoming. Each one of those has very similar language. May assess up, say, hospital district, 3 mills, solid waste disposal districts, 2 mills, rural fire department, 2 mills, weed and pest conservation district. Those are elected at the local level. They already have the power to reduce those property taxes. The beauty of that, Mr. Chairman, is when we get to that, is you have 23 solutions at the county level. In other words, if Teton's experiencing these double digit, or my friend from Lincoln, those commissioners can go in there and further reduce what we've already done. But you may be in Sweetwater or Carbon or Weston and Niobrara, and we didn't experience those double digit property taxes. We may not implement that. So it provides 23 solutions instead of a one size fits all. And then you layer those 700 special districts in there. So part of I think our job is to go out there and educate the people and say, you don't need to pass anything. You already have the control of that by who you elect to those special elections. And you should show up and engage and say, if you're in Teton County or Lincoln County or whatever county's experiencing that, go ask those people that, just like me and you, that got elected. We've done our part. Now they need to do their part. And they could certainly go far beyond that, which we've seen in Teton County actually do, down to 5 mills versus the 12 that they can. And so it gets away from this one size. We know in Wyoming, we really do hate it when Washington gives us one size solutions to a 50 state problem. You know what I mean? This is the same thing. Now we've said we've done what we're responsible for. We've done the constitutional amendment. We've reduced the mills we collect. Now you go ask those locally elected. You voted for those people. That's their money. You need to go talk to them. And so I know that didn't specifically answer the question of the ballot, but part of this before we get to the ballot is we have an obligation to educate the electorate, because the legal mechanism to reduce that, July 1st, all those budgets come in. Till we start budgeting, and right now, the counties are going to start budgeting, all these special districts are going to start budgeting. We could actually see implementation of property tax relief for that other collected component before we get to November. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if that answered the question, but at least through my mind of process, that's the mechanism that we ought to proceed with, is that educational thing, and say, look, you want it, because it's not a one size fits all solution. So, Mr. Chairman, I hope that helps.
So as I look at this, if we implement this bill and the People's Initiative passes, it's still an effective tool. It just changes the size of the haircut given. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, and I think that's one of the simplicities of this thing, is that every legislature can come back and adjust those mills to whatever the public wants. And again, that's our purview to do that, but that's the money that we collect. So, because right now we went from 25 to 0. Anything in between is on the table. And that's just a matter of a majority vote in both houses to adjust those in future conditions. And so it does provide, I think, more flexibility and opportunity to react under future conditions. Again, I think we have an education process we've got to do between now and then in case that happens, right? But again, I hate to prognosticate upon what the future might or might not do. But anyway, this is a solution that I've tried to find to address some of the concerns that have out there. It still has a few tweaks we need to make to it, Mr. Chairman, if and when you want to work the bill. I've got a couple of suggestions. What I want to do is make this as uniform as possible to what we've already done last year with the 25%. So there's a couple of things we need to probably bring into here, but whenever the committee is ready to work it, I have a couple minor amendments.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Dockstetter.
I'm hearing downside, or a trend that's down as far as education funding. And if I'm reading the chart right, that's what we've got. Some thoughts on that, Senator? Am I reading this right?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So the only thing that we have the discretionary ability through is what we collect is that 25 mills for the school foundation program. So that just puts the obligation back on us to fund top property tax relief. We have a constitutional requirement to fund education. So the question is do you want to use your money to give property tax relief, you being us in the legislature or somebody else's? And so that obligation does not go away. If we're serious and we're going to fund education and we're going to give property tax relief, then we ought to be willing to pay for it. That's what the question comes down to.
Senator Case.
Well, in the end, if this is just a backfill mechanism, which the Senate rejected last year, we did reject backfill, but that's what this does. Push it on the schools, then the state has to make up the schools, or not. But there are major implications if we don't. So it works out to be backfill. And therefore, property tax relief occurs and local people don't notice it in their communities. They get the benefit of it, and it's a transfer from Cheyenne to local governments.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
I wouldn't characterize it as that. I mean, it certainly, because we're not collecting in its very sense, it's not a backfill. Now, we're going to pay for it. Make no bones about it. You know, typically in the connotation of Blackfield is you take something and then you give it back. We're just not going to collect it. We're going to pay for it out of the general fund or the school foundation program account. It does allow those local governments to keep their money, but there's people that were elected and that money was, those tax revenues were collected for that purpose, not for the purpose of us reducing our obligations. So there's just a difference of maybe terminology is what we're doing here, but we're going to pay for it. And we're paying for part of it now. We're just saying, look, everybody has to still pay 13%. Let's make that clear. That constitutional amendment going for that residential from 9.5 to 8.3. All those local governments are going to still contribute part of their tax revenue out of that. So it's only that differential of that 12%. We're saying we're going to pick up that additional 12% out of the 25% of total tax relief, and we're going to pay for that out of our money. And we leave their money whole. And it's not that big of a fiscal number. If Matt, I think you can see that on there. I believe that the total revenue that then would be restored associated with this bill is about $18 million. Is that correct, Matt? That's not a big chunk, but it does go back to those counties and special districts. Again, that's you know, those people voted for those at the local level. We'll let them decide how they want to do that. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd stand for any questions. And if you want to, we can walk through the bill real quick.
All up.
Well, no, Mr. Chairman, I think philosophically, property tax has been the biggest supporter of schools. It's kind of the way the system happened. And we had lawsuits that said that local wealth shouldn't determine school resources. We still have a property tax system underlying that. I think this lets people have their 25% reduction in property tax, but makes the school, makes a state make up the difference through the schools. And I'm not sure how that's any different at all than a backfill. I don't see it.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Hicks.
So, and Senator Case is right, but the difference is we have a statutory, which is the 25 mils. And so if you also go in there for the schools, there's also Article 15, Section 15 and 17. The taxpayers are still paying for those schools with their property taxes out of that. So that's the constitutional provision. That's the 12 mils that for the local level, and that's the 6 mils on the Constitution that we collect. So make no bones about it. Those property owners are still paying that 18 mils, plus they're going to pay that reduced amount of that going from that 9.5. So they're still on that hook, so that we still are hitting the property owners pretty hard for funding the public schools. We can't touch those constitutional 18 mils that go to education without a constitutional amendment. And by enacting that constitutional amendment, those local governments are still paying for those schools at 13%. So we just give them a little break for that differential, which is about 12% that they're currently paying for, that we're collecting through the current bill that we passed. We're collecting that now and paying for it. So the only differential is literally that 12%. Those constitutional mills are still collected, if that makes sense.
Here I go. I'm going to try to oversimplify this, so I might be all wet, but from what I'm seeing, when the dust settles on this, the state's paying an extra 18 million to the counties and special districts who will receive the difference. Is that where we're headed with it?
So, Mr. Chairman, that's one way you could characterize it. The way, Mr. Chairman, we're not paying them to do anything. We're just going to let them have the money that their voters voted for under their property taxes, that they're responsible for. The counties are responsible for that. The special districts, the people that voted them in office, they get to keep their tax revenue. It's not giving it back. It's letting them keep it. Right now, we confiscate that. And we use that for the purposes of property tax relief. And we can certainly, we've done that. Just saying, look, you know, we're responsible for schools, and if the legislature wants to give them property tax relief, we can. So it's not given it. Basically, we're saying it's yours to begin with, you keep it. So you can say, well, we're giving it back. It may be very accurate from the standpoint the connotation is then we took it in the first place, which effectively we did. So I'm just trying to make sure that everybody gets the same level of property tax relief. And again, if you're going to characterize it, it's a fund swap. And so we're going to use our funds instead of their funds to give property tax relief. I think that's the most simplification that you can do, is saying, look, you get the same 25%. We're just going to use our money and that constitutional provision to implement that. And we're not going to confiscate your money to give property tax relief. Your voters voted for you. Go to those county commissioners. That's their money.
And I get it. We're kind of having a semantical war right now. But at the end of the day, the counties end up with 18 million more of their money that we don't take. So they're 18 million better off. And the state's 18 million missing because we didn't take their money. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I got my brain wrapped around this. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, and if you are inclined, I have a couple of minor amendments to the bill if you decide to work the bill.
Okay, well, let's talk about your amendments right now then. Well, let's wait till we move the bill, and I'll bring you back up. So let Senator Pappas point out that I'm violating rules and procedures.
Check and see if we got anybody.
Mr. Moline.
Mr. Chairman, Committee, Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation. I appreciate what this bill does. I do have a few questions. The way I read the bill, that if I own a home and I rent it out, that would be subject to the higher tax rate. The concern I have with that is quite often employers will supply employee housing on their property. It's owned by the person operating the business. But it's, in order to get help, you need to provide housing, and it's on their property, on the owner's, the employer's property. The way I would read this is being used for residential property, but it would be subject to the higher assessment rate. I guess as a question, I'm assuming that's correct.
Mr. Moline, yes, it is.
Yeah.
However, this bill doesn't change that. The past property tax bills separated owner occupied versus not owner occupied. So
Yes.
whether we pass this bill or not, the rental properties, or in the case that you're saying, would still be at the 9.5%.
Mr. Chairman, if I remember right, the industry that my members work in, the agriculture, was exempted from that in order to supply housing for their employees. As many times that's the only thing that's available is what the farmer ranch owner owns. You know, just the location, you know, when you're 30, 40 miles away from any other source of housing, that agriculture was exempted, and so that it would be at the lower rate. And if that is not the case, I don't read that in the bill. I didn't look at the rest of the statute, and that's on me, but I would ask that somehow any employer provided housing would be assessed at the lower rate. And there's many times why you would you want that in order for my members sometimes to get employees, we need to provide housing. And it's owned housing. It's owned by the owner of the farmer or the ranch. I don't know exactly how that would be worded to put in there, but I believe in some of the other tax relief bills, employer provided housing was exempt or, was able to take advantage of the lower tax rates. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd take any questions.
Senator Case.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I probably shouldn't do this, but in that situation we're describing, it's a business. And that would be a business expense that you'd be providing housing to your employees. And so there would be a deduction on your federal income tax. And in fact, depending on the circumstance, the employee would have to declare the free rent as being income. That depends. That goes both ways. But I'm trying to say it's already covered under the business laws in some sense. You'd get an additional break if you didn't have to pay property taxes on it. He has to pay property taxes on his meat grant.
Truth.
Again, Mr. Chairman, I do believe that in some of the other tax relief bills that employer provided housing was able to be subject to the tax rate. Again, that would, if they got the tax rebate, that would lower what their deduction was. I mean, I am not an accountant, my son is, but if I remember right on some of these other aspects, the employer provided housing was included in the tax relief. And you get to the point, Mr. Chairman, Senator Case, about renting it out. One of my members said it's a lot better to pay somebody a higher rate and to charge rent because of the care of the property. If they're paying rent, they tend to take better care of it. Just a slight aside, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
I'm going to get back to you on that
yes, sir.
because you bring up a point that as we brought the property tax relief, the rules the first year were different than the rules the second year. So I want to look at it again and I'll get back to you on it because I don't want to say something that's not true or that's opinion rather than fact.
Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate that. And this is the way I remember it. It doesn't mean that it's my recollection is 100% accurate either.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Moline.
Mr. Chairman, Ken Gill with the Department of Revenue, Property Tax Division Administrator. Just back on the last conversation. So this year, in tax year 2026, this will be the first time that we've actually employed owner occupied. So Mr. Merline's correct. It wasn't a carve out for employee housing, but what it was every single family residential dwelling and associated land got the 25%. In 2026, it's owner occupied, get the 25% exemption. So in a way, he's right, but it wasn't a carve out for employee housing.
So I was right.
Mr. Chairman, you were right.
That's one in a row. I'm quitting now.
Mr. Chairman, just a few comments on the administration of this proposal. And I'm looking more at the state level administration. You have the boots on the ground, our local partners, the county assessors that can speak to how they'll deal with this at the local level. But looking at it from a state level, we have the statewide CAMA system. This is very complex bill when it comes to the programming for the computer programming for the CAMA system. I want you to imagine a property. Okay, you have a house, you have the associated residential land, you have some outbuildings, maybe some ag land. Okay, so you have multiple things on this property. Okay, so right now, what would get the level of assessment from 9.5 to 8.3, it would have to be owner occupied. The dwelling would be at 8.3, the associated residential land, so maybe that 1 acre around the house would be at 8.3. The outbuildings would be at 9.5. The agricultural property would be at 9.5 because that's the other tier, right? The other tier of taxation. Then we take off the 25 mils, right? So now the dwelling and the associated land will be at 1 mill levy, 25 mils less than the agricultural land and the outbuildings. So now if you can think about this, we now have 2 levels of assessment on 1 account, 1 parcel, and 2 tax rates or mill levies, if you will. So it's going to be very, very complex to program this in into the CAMA system. So we will work with our vendor and get a good quote from them so that we have a figure for you to go forward, because we will need some programming, and how much time that programming will take, I'm not sure on that. The vendor has not gotten back to me completely yet. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I know the county assessors are here and they have some suggestions, but from a statewide standpoint, looking at the CAMA system, currently the system can't do this proposal. It can do part of it. We can go from 9.5 to 8.3 at that dwelling, that associated land level. That's easy. We can implement that very, very quickly. But what we can't do right now is that mixed mill levy at that account level. So, and we'll work with our vendor to be able to do that should this pass.
So would that include all the outbuildings? I
Mr. Chair,
mean, I guess my question is, the property you just described is already taxed at different levels. The ag portion, the residential portion.
Mr. Chairman, it's all at the same level of assessment currently. Currently, what you just described or I described, it's at 9.5% assessment level. So currently, it's really all the same, and it's all at the same mill levy. So a lot of moving parts as we get into the programming of this piece. But if you look on page 3, Mr. Chairman, starting on line 9, residential real property means real property improved by a dwelling designed not to house more than 3 families and includes associated residential land where the dwelling is located. And so it doesn't include that ag land, which is a different tier, because remember, Wyoming is a tier taxation state with minerals, industrial, residential, all other. And then, of course, our residential tier, what this bill speaks to is what the voters passed in 2024 on Amendment A, where the legislature can now create a subclass in that residential tier of owner occupied. And that's what this bill speaks to.
Boy, I'm back to the dumb questions now. So if a family has family members living in one of the other buildings, is that at 8.3 because they're related, or is that still at 9.5?
Mr. Chairman, I think it probably be at 9.5 because it's a family member, but in many cases, if you remember some of the past property tax relief that has passed, there were caveats that if they were part of the corporation or if it was a contract for deed or many things that we went down on both the long-term homeowners and the 25%, I believe. So maybe not the 25%, but the long-term homeowners was, if you're part of the corporation or it was under contract or something like that. But a family member wouldn't, unless they are part of the ownership, which could be, Mr. Chairman.
So if they're part of the ownership, they'd be at 8.3.
Mr. Chairman, that's how I view it.
Okay. Told you it wasn't a very good question.
It was a good question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ide.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. not to beat this horse to death, but would you mind speculating on that People's Initiative? The same question I asked Senator Hicks. I'm still a little foggy on if that passes this fall and we got this bill into legislation, what happens then? If you have a comment on that, I'd like to hear it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if this were to pass and the People's Initiative passes in November, and then you have them both in law. And of course, the legislature will be able to meet on that general session. So it will be up to your body to decide what to do with both.
Basically, it'd be 8.3 minus 50%.
Mr. Chairman, it could be, but keep in mind the initiative that will be on the ballot is for the dwelling only and not the land.
That is correct.
And again, Mr. Chairman, it is owner occupied, so we have to gather that information to find out who occupies the property that they own. Not everyone does, as you know. So, and we're currently doing that for the 25% or the former Senate File 69 from last year. We're collecting that. And as of today, we have right around 45,000, 46,000, somewhere in there, folks that have signed up on our site. Now, one thing about our site, it is tied into the CAMA system. So being tied into the CAMA system, perhaps in the future on owner occupied, whether it be this bill, whether it be the former Senate File 69, maybe we won't have to have them apply on a yearly basis because we will have that database and we'll know when that property changes hands and goes into a new name. Maybe it's no longer owner occupied or there's a new owner that needs to make that claim.
And let me guess, if that passes, the CAMA system won't be able to handle that either?
Well, no, right now it currently is. It is handling
No, I'm
that.
saying if the 50% just on the structure passes.
Mr. Chairman, yes, the CAMA system can handle that. We've done that. In fact, if you remember correctly, the long-term homeowners bill that passed, I think at one time it was just no, it wasn't that bill. There was one that we had that was just it was the 25%, sir. It was the 25%. The first year it was on the dwelling only. And the second year, then it will be it was on the dwelling and the associated land. So yes, Mr. Chairman, we can do that. We have that.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
It's good to see you. Haven't been up here in a while.
Mr. Chairman, I've got to slip out to another meeting, but I'm wondering if we could hear from schools quickly before I do. I think that they just walked into the room.
Do we have a representative from the schools?
Education.
Education? Dixie, you can stay up there.
What? I don't know if the gentleman knows what he's walking into.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tate Mullen, Government Relations Director for the Wyoming Education Association, here to answer any questions you may have.
What did the Titanic weigh when it sunk? Sorry.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Dockstetter.
Sir, you may want to update yourself on this as far as what it does for revenue for the schools and then come back and offer some comment.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Dockstetter, the Wyoming Education Association, our legislative platform is incredibly clear about any proposal that reduces revenue to the school foundation, whether that's this proposal or a number of others that we've seen. So at this point, we are currently in opposition to this proposal.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Senator Gase.
not meaning to defend this bill. I'm not the sponsor and I don't really like this bill, but I think the thinking behind it is that if the state would have to make up the difference in the money from Cheyenne to stay in compliance with funding, so that it's kind of it might be a wash to the schools, but it might not if we don't do that second step. So I can get your point, but I think some people would say, well, it wouldn't impact the schools because we will make it up in our, what we used to call power equalization from Cheyenne. But don't mean to put words in your mouth.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Case. So, and this is something that we've heard pretty frequently, right? Is that schools are going to be made whole, but we're taking a longer look at this problem because at some point the LSRA does get drained down, and once that LSRA hits a certain amount, it ceases to be the backfill for education funding. And the more that we are making whole for all of these property tax bills, then we are increasing the state share. And then at some point, there is the potential that we're running into this problem of draining the LSRA, hitting that mark, and then no more will the LSRA act as a backfill. And even at that point, I think the current assessment on that is that that would result in roughly a 40% cut to education. Now, just because that's in statute, and I need to be very clear on this, just because that's in statute does not make that cut constitutional. It is not cost-based. So that would be a significant problem.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Dixie Huxtable, Converse County Assessor, and here with the Wyoming County Assessors Association. I do have some other assessors in the back room that can certainly answer some specific questions if you have some. In regards to Senate File 110, we do have some concerns specifically about implementation, but Administrator Gill explained the complexities of this, and it is very complex from our standpoint of how this would work. Is it feasible? Can it be done? Absolutely, I think it can be done. We don't know the cost, the timeline of how much it would take to get the CAMA system to manage that. But I would also go one step further and let you know that the Treasurers Association also may have some input about this because we supply the tax roll, the assessors supply the tax roll to the treasurers with all the values and the assessments in the mill levies. They then send out the bill. So you have more than one county system out there that's managing the tax bills. To my knowledge, there's about 3 right now across the state, 3 different programs that do that. I'm not sure they're capable of handling this change in having one account with multiple assessment levels and multiple mill levies. Again, I've not asked that because that's not my purview, that's the treasurer's, but I do think it would take some time to get that programming updated. And I think that would be absolutely essential that the counties have to get that done. So with that being said, we did have a couple of suggestions to the bringing of the bill. Senator Hicks has this, and this may be part of what he's talking about. One of the things we would ask is that we look at the residency requirement. This bill speaks to 6 months. We would just ask to make it consistent with other things in statute and go to the 8-month limit for the residency requirement. There was some amendments to that's going through both houses currently. I think it's House Bill 45 that changes some language on the owner occupancy requirement, where we offered some language that allowed a person that was buying and selling their home. For example, they lived in their home, they sold it, they bought a new home, to allow the months that they lived in both of those owner occupied homes to count. So I think that's important language to consider. That was an issue as we started working some of these exemptions in the last couple of years. We offered that amendment and it did pass through that House. And just for consistency, we would ask that you consider going from a 6-month residency requirement to 8-month and then inserting that additional language. Also, the deadline for an application for this claim in this bill is the fourth Monday in May. And we would respectfully ask that to change to March 1st, should this move forward, to give us more time to get those claims in and processed, and to make sure that we have the transparency for the taxpayer when they get their notice of assessment from us in April, that they would see that claim on there. If you wait till the fourth Monday in May, the notice of assessment has already been mailed. And so that transparency gets lost a little bit. Along with the complexities of actually doing this in the computer, we offered a suggestion that maybe if you were to pass this and move it into law, maybe we extend the implementation date. Give us one more year, give us to 2028 to get this program into the system. I don't know how that would work. That was just an offer that we had suggested. That we've been through several implementations of the CAMA system, and it is statewide. It is required for all 23 counties to use it. Usually when there's a major rewrite, it takes a while. One for the programmers to get it developed, one for the testing, one for the implementation, and one to clean up the bugs. And we just wanted to be sure that we had enough time to, one, let the department work with the vendor to get it corrected and perfected and tested before we were to implement such a significant change into the taxpayers. Can it be done? Absolutely. I do believe it can be. It's just going to take a little bit of time to get that programming done, and probably some cost associated with it. With that, I would stand for any questions.
I have kind of an odd question. We set it at 8 months, right? So if I go on a 30-day cruise on vacation, am I still collecting good time in my house? Or do I need to report that I wasn't occupying that house for the 30 days?
Mr. Chairman, the way that we're processing that, as long as your residency stayed with your home in Wyoming and you did not change your residency to another state or another location, then you would get credit for that time you were on vacation, so to speak. It's when you change your residency to another location that triggers that 8-month off and on.
So that leads me to my next question on the 8-month residency requirement. If I'm claiming my Wyoming residence, and I guess let's say I have a winter home in Arizona, but I don't claim residency in Arizona, does that time still count as I'm a Wyoming resident or not? Do you understand where I'm going with
I
this?
do, Mr. Chairman, and it's a difficult one. It's one we deal with all the time with taxpayers. And so we are talking about owner occupied residence. So your residence here and you're occupying the home. The intermittent vacation that you take a cruise, or you go for a month here, you go for a month there. Typically, most assessors are going to look like that as a vacation. I'm going to use an example in my county. I have somebody that owns houses in multiple places. Owns one in Wyoming, owns one in a southern state, owns one in another country. Spends several weeks in the other country, several weeks in the home in South. Those are his residences while he's there. He owns them. That's his residence. So in that particular case, that was denied and he didn't have any problem with it. We are trusting the taxpayer to be self-reporting and to tell us the truth. We don't know when they moved from here to their property in the South. We don't know if they were down there for 3 months or 6 months. What we do know is that they own the property in Wyoming and they're signing an affidavit that says they live in that property in Wyoming for 8 months, or whatever the required month is that you put into law. I do not have a good way to verify that. It's an owner, it's a taxpayer honor system, and that's what we are charged with dealing with.
And I'll just leave one last little comment. There are cruises that last 6 months that go around the globe. Would my residence be the cruise ship or my house?
Mr. Chairman, to be honest, I would have to think about that. Did you change any of your mailing? Did you change any of your voting records? Where are you registered to vote? Where is your mailing going? Those would be all things that we would consider. Typically, it's going to be your residence in Wyoming and the number of months that you stay in that residence, if that answers your question.
So we need to do some work on defining that to help you out.
Mr. Chairman, I'm certainly open to that.
Any other questions?
Could be a 3-hour cruise that just goes wrong.
Mr. Chairman, I did want to talk a little bit about the owner-occupied multiple houses, which we are dealing with, that Mr. Moline spoke to. And I think Administrator Gill did address that pretty clearly. If the property has multiple homes that are being resided on by an owner that's of record, so maybe their name is on the deed or they're an owner of the partnership or the corporation that owns the property, then we're considering that owner occupied. If they're renting it out or they're using it for their employees, then that is not owner occupied. So I don't know if that helps clarify or makes it more confusing, but that's how we're handling multiple residences on one property.
Actually, that's pretty simple, and I'm glad we're wrestling with taxes and not gambling. Do we have anybody else that wants to testify? I know.
Can we table this to go to the next meeting? I think we should miss it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Jeremiah Riemann here on behalf of the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. I appreciate you taking up Senate File 110. Commissioners are supportive of this and appreciate the unique way in which it was crafted to try and provide relief and lessen the impact that is happening back to counties. I certainly appreciate the thought that this might be backfilling local governments, but let's be honest, if we had taken an approach like this in the first instance, we wouldn't be calling that backfill. It's just backfill now because you're providing some fiscal relief, and it does provide some relief that is needed for many of the local governments that have experienced the property tax reductions. We see a bill going through the House right now to try and increase mill levies for fire districts, entirely targeted at trying to provide some funding back to them. And I think this is a better way of providing that relief than trying to raise mill levies, which becomes problematic. To the extent that there are issues with the bills, we're happy to work with all the parties, and I know that they're all willing to sit down and try and resolve those little bits and pieces here, and we'll be happy to help lead that effort and bring something back to you as necessary. And with that, Mr. Chairman, again, we are supportive and happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Ashley Harpstreet, Wyoming Association of Municipalities. We too stand in support of this bill. I'm sure you're shocked to hear this. But we do feel.
Actually, I'm shocked both of you support anything we're doing.
Because it does strike the right balance between providing meaningful targeted property tax relief to homeowners who are also our constituents while preserving the stability of local governments need to deliver those essential services. Municipalities rely on predictable property tax base to fund police, fire, streets, water, and sewer systems and the day-to-day operations that keep communities functioning. We believe that this bill will help maintain that stability. This bill also protects primary resident homeowners without creating the sweeping revenue losses that other proposals would impose. By limiting certain mills to primary residents and repealing an exemption that has distorted the tax base, we feel that this broadens fairness while avoiding unintended harm to local budgets. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions? All right, committee, I'm looking at Libby to see if I can pull this one off. Can we finish this up on Wednesday?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, that's entirely up to your discretion.
Oh, I love that. And I have a gavel. I think that's what I'd like to do, because I'd like to have Senator Hicks come back up and go over some of the changes he wants in it before we vote on it. And unfortunately, this went longer than I thought. But I wanted to give everybody who wanted to talk a chance to talk on it. And we'll still have more public comment on Wednesday if somebody else wants to come speak to it.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Pappas?
Yeah, would we be able to get a fiscal note on that computer change by then? Or at least an estimate? It would be nice to kind of know that number. Stab in the dark would even be good.
Senator Ide.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking of fiscal notes, we had some discussion on the 6-month, 8-month on residency. Is there any way to speculate probably on if we just got rid of that requirement and had no requirement, what that would look like fiscally? Anyway, just a thought. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that whole residency thing. And I know I made silly examples, but they're still valid examples. What does it mean? Not that I can afford a 6-month cruise, so I don't have to worry about it, but. Okay. Committee, anything else? We will adjourn.